My sister used me for her lavish wedding, then banned me for not being blood. Now, she's divorced, drowning in debt, and suing our parents. My name is Sydney, I'm 27 years old, and I live a good life on my own, a life I've built through hard work and the support of my fiancé Luke. You're probably wondering, what about my family? Well, I haven't had the best relationship with them, and they're also the reason I'm here, seeking advice from you all. I guess we should start with a bit of context before getting into why I'm really here. As I mentioned before, I haven't exactly had the best relationship with my family. It's complicated, and has been that way for as long as I can remember. I was adopted by my parents, the Hansons, when they couldn't have children of their own. While I'm grateful they gave me a home, it always felt like I wasn't truly wanted for who I was. They seemed to see me more as a way to fill the void of not having their own child, rather than as a person to love and nurture. Don't get me wrong, I'm not being ungrateful. Honestly, I can't thank them enough for choosing me and giving me a somewhat better life than I might have had in the orphanage. But when you think about it, it wasn't really that different. Still, I was grateful to them. During the first few years of my life, things were okay, even good. It's not like I was spoiled or anything, but I didn't lack love, and that was enough for me. I mean, it was much more than I got at the orphanage, so I was content, but everything changed when I was about 4 years old. My adoptive mom gave birth to a baby girl, Janice, and everything shifted. Overnight, it felt like I disappeared. They were so consumed with their biological child that I faded into the background. While I was excited to be a big sister, it quickly became clear that I no longer mattered to them. You see, I admit, it hurt a lot. They didn't say it outright, but it became completely obvious that they no longer wanted me. It was like I had only been a placeholder until Janice arrived and claimed her place in the house. It felt like the idea of me being there was a mistake they now had to live with. I felt like a burden, a mistake they regretted and couldn't undo. And for a child who just wanted to feel loved, wanted, and important, they really hurt me deeply. I wanted to keep things the way they were, to stay connected with them, but it felt like I was clinging to something that was never really there. The more I tried, the more they pushed me away, as if I were some kind of inconvenience. It's not like they tortured me or anything, they still paid for my things, but it was clear they only did it because they had no other choice. They didn't need to do much to leave a lasting effect. The emotional lack, the feeling of being unwanted, all of that was enough to traumatize me for life. Even Janice, whom I considered my own sister, always treated me like I was nothing more than a stranger. She was just a baby when she came into my life, but as she grew, it became clear she never saw me as part of the family. She barely looked at me, and when she did, it was with the same indifference you'd give to a neighbor who simply doesn't matter. I don't want to sound like a victim here, but it's really hard to grow up feeling like you were a burden, and that no one in your family cared whether you were there or not. So, I guess you understand why I started distancing myself from my family. When I was just a teenager, things just felt easier that way. I didn't have to worry about being a burden to anyone. I spent a lot of time alone or with friends, and it was clear I was never going to get the attention or care I needed from my parents. Sometimes, I felt like it would have been better if I had never been adopted. I mean, it seemed like they adopted me just to ignore me and act like they didn't care. That hurt a lot. I don't know what's worse, not having a family or having one that doesn't care if you exist or not. For me, the latter was worse because I lived in the hell of constantly feeling unwanted. That's why, as soon as I turned 18, I left home and distanced myself from my family. I didn't cut them off entirely. We still talk, but I'm no longer close to them. Fast forward to today. I live in another city with my fiancé, Luke. Things are going well. I'm independent and happy, and my relationship with Luke is stable and full of love. He's given me all the love I had been searching for my entire life and has been my rock since we started dating 2 years ago. I built a life I'm proud of, even if it's not tied to the family I grew up with. I visit them on holidays, and sometimes we talk on the phone, but that's it. I never let myself get too close to them, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I'm used to it now, and have finally accepted it, but that doesn't mean the void they left in my heart isn't still there. And that's why I find myself here, venting to a bunch of strangers about my family that hasn't given me love. Recently, things have changed a bit. Giannis just got engaged to a guy named Peter, and now my family is reaching out to me. They want me to help with the wedding preparations. I've received messages from my mom asking if I'll help plan and maybe even attend the wedding. Giannis hasn't said much, but my parents seem insistent. They're trying to make it seem like a family affair they want me to be part of because it wouldn't be the same without me. We're supposed to be united for Giannis's big day. I'm confused and, honestly, a little hurt. The same family that pushed me aside and made me feel like I didn't belong now, wants me to participate in something so important. I haven't had any deep conversations with Giannis since she was a child. She's never shown any interest in me as a sister, and now I'm supposed to act like everything's fine, like the years of emotional neglect never happen. But it's not just that. There's also the fact that, while I still visit them on holidays and such, I've spent much of my life trying to protect myself from the harm they caused. It feels strange to even think about getting involved in something that could potentially reopen old wounds. On the other hand, I know Giannis is my sister, even if we never bonded that way. I just feel like maybe this is her way of trying to build a relationship with me, even if she doesn't realize it yet. Perhaps this is exactly what I need to have the family I've longed for all this time. Maybe this is the way to fill the void in my heart. So here I am, stuck, and needing advice from you. Should I help them with the preparations and take this opportunity as a way to fix things between us? Or should I keep protecting myself as I've been doing all this time? Luke thinks I should help if I want to. He says it's my decision, and that it could be a way to reconnect with them. He's been nothing but supportive and really understands where I'm coming from, but I still can't help feeling confused about the whole matter. So, I guess I just need advice on whether this is worth my time, or if I should keep my distance. So guys, please help me, that's all I can ask. Update 1. It's been a few weeks since my initial post, and I wish I had good news. I really thought this time things would be different, truly. But now, sitting here furious and venting to a group of strangers, I realize I've been a complete fool. Honestly, I don't even know why I let myself get caught up in this toxic family again. Maybe, deep down, I just wanted to believe that my family finally cared, that maybe they had finally recognized my worth, and that I could finally start to mend things. Well, spoiler alert, they didn't. After writing here, I spent a few days reading the comments and thinking about what to do. Many of you were very understanding and got my dilemma, encouraging me to give this a chance. Some of you were harsher, calling me stupid for even considering this. How I wish I had listened to you. So, as you might have guessed, I decided to help my family with Giannis's wedding preparations. Yes, I know, I should have trusted my intuition, or listened to some of you who told me to stay away. But I thought maybe this was their way of trying to reconnect. I wasn't expecting miracles or a grandeur family moment, but I figured if they were reaching out, there had to be some sincerity behind it, right? I was wrong. So here's exactly what happened. What has me so angry, I don't know what to do, other than vent about it. After I told my parents I was willing to help with the preparations, things were fine for a while. I mean, my parents acted more attentive than they had my entire life. My mom even hugged me when I said I'd help, and considering I don't remember the last time she hugged me, this was something. And yes, it was strange, but it was something I'd been craving for so long. And just for this, like the emotional fool I surely am, I let my guard down. I thought maybe they were trying to make up for all the years of neglect. I should have known it was too good to be true. As the planning progressed, I even bonded with Giannis like never before. It was like she finally acknowledged me as her sister after all this time. It felt good, but that's when things got a little weird. Giannis started asking me for money. At first, it was small things, a little extra here for decorations, a payment for the venue deposit there. She framed it as if she had no other choice and needed to make the payments immediately or lose the booking. She told me she had a big payment coming up soon and promised to pay me back in a few days. Well, I didn't think much of it. I mean, I had no problem helping my sister since money wasn't an issue for me. But still, deep down, I felt a little skeptical about the whole thing. Yet, every time I doubted, Giannis turned on her charm. She assured me it was just temporary, that she'd pay everything back soon, and that she really wanted me to be part of the wedding. After all these years, I finally felt included, like the big sister I always wanted to be. I'm almost embarrassed to admit how much I wanted that. So, yes, I made a few big payments. It didn't impact me financially much, but emotionally, I still felt skeptical about whether everything happening was genuine or not. Still, I decided to go along with it, thinking I was helping my family and that this would be my way of contributing to my little sister's wedding. Once most of the preparations were done, the next day, Giannis dropped the bombshell. She told me I couldn't go to the wedding. After helping her create this perfect wedding, she tells me I simply couldn't attend. She said she wanted the wedding to be for blood family only, and that, since I'm adopted, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to be there. I was in shock at that moment. It was like lightning had struck me, because I just stood there, stunned, trying to process what she was saying. Blood family only. As if I hadn't been there for her from the moment she was born. As if I wasn't the one who had just bailed them out with the wedding expenses. And suddenly, all the childhood insecurities came rushing back. That's when I realized they never wanted to fix things or reconnect with me. They just wanted to use me, and now that they had, they were discarding me. They've always been this way, and I was the idiot. The naive one who thought things could change. I was the one who let myself be used and tossed aside like trash. So, I left immediately. I didn't say a word to Giannis or my parents. I didn't even look back. I just left. I was furious, and I still am. Part of me is angry at them, but another part is angry at myself for letting this happen. I should have known better. I should have trusted my instincts. But no. I let myself get swept up in some kind of fairy tale where they finally wanted me. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm done. Absolutely, totally done with them. Done with their lies, with being their forgotten daughter they only remember when they need something. And now, I'm planning something. I don't know if it will work or not, but they're not going to get away with it. Do they think they can treat me like garbage and go on with their lives? Well, now they'll have to face the consequences. Guys, I'll update you once I carry out my plan. Until then, goodbye. Update 2. It's Sydney again. It's been a few days since my last update, and let's just say things have gotten interesting. Or rather, karma finally showed up and did its thing. The wedding was a few days ago, and guess what? My phone hasn't stopped ringing since. And yes, it's my parents who won't stop calling me. No, they're not calling to apologize or to say how what Giannis did was wrong and she shouldn't have done it. In fact, they're calling to ask for my help. Because apparently, Giannis is neck deep in debt, and somehow they think it's my fault. Remember I mentioned I was planning something after the whole blood family only fiasco? Well, I decided that if Giannis wanted to use me and then throw me away like trash, she'd have to face the consequences of her actions. So, after calming down enough to act, I went and cancelled all the reservations I had made for her wedding. Every single one of them. The deposits, the payments, everything. Some of my money was refunded, but, of course, I didn't get all of it back since some things were non-refundable. But I didn't care. That was the price I was willing to pay to see Giannis struggle with what mattered most to her at that moment, her wedding. Once I cancelled some of the more significant arrangements, the wedding began to fall apart, and everything unraveled quickly. As soon as Giannis realized what I had done and saw her wedding falling apart, she started running around trying to reorganize everything last minute. And because it was all so rushed, she ended up paying much more than I had originally paid. She was desperate, so she ended up taking out a massive loan to cover everything. Now she's drowning in debt because she thought she could play me and get away with it. Needless to say, the wedding was an absolute disaster. And yes, I mean, it was an acceptable wedding, but nothing compared to the perfect wedding I had helped Giannis plan. Since everything was arranged last minute and haphazardly, the wedding was like a total circus, and Giannis was humiliated from what I've heard. But at the end of the day, she got married, and that's what matters, I guess, right? Except for the fact that she's now in massive debt. That's why my parents haven't stopped calling me, trying to guilt me into helping her. They keep saying Giannis is in a bad spot, and that, as her older sister, I'm responsible for taking care of her. Seriously, where was this older sister during her wedding? Oh right, not invited because she's not blood. They even had the audacity to tell me I should let go of the past and be the bigger person. I laughed when they said that, and told them I'm not a doormat they can walk all over when it's convenient. Giannis is the one who caused this entire situation herself, and if she thought she could get away with using me, she was wrong. I also told them they should ask a blood relative for help. And with that, I hung up. Honestly, it feels good to finally stand up for myself. My whole life I've been the forgotten one, the outsider, the one they only turn to when they need something, but now they know I won't tolerate it anymore. So now, Giannis is miserable, trapped under her mountain of debt, and my parents keep begging me to help her, but I don't care. I'm done with them and their toxic behavior. Let them deal with the mess they created, it's not my problem anymore. I guess that's the end of my story since I finally got some closure in my life and I'm enjoying this peace with my fiancé. Well, except for the constant ringing of the phone, but that's what the block button is for, right? Anyway, thank you all for the support throughout all of this. Update 3. Just when you thought it was over. I never thought I'd be writing this update, but here we are, just a few days after the last one, and all because my sister has reached new lows I never knew existed. After everything that happened, I thought I was done with all of this. But of course, she had other plans and wasn't going to let me walk away from it all so easily. After I refused to help her, she must have been furious with me, blaming me for the situation she was in. So, she decided to take things further and mess with me even more. Bad idea. In her twisted mind, she thought she could get back at me, and honestly, it's comical how badly it all backfired on her. Here's what happened. A few days after I refused to help her with her debt, Yana sent a bunch of fake photos to my fiancé, Luke. She had the audacity to tell him she had seen me cheating on him the night before, and that she was so sorry her sister had done something so shameful and broken his heart. She even went further and said she was ashamed to be related to a cheater like me. The things this woman did, all for petty revenge over something she caused herself. She even added a ridiculous story about how she'd always wanted the best for me, but couldn't stand to see me lying to him. You see, in her mind, she thought she had played her cards well, but she was a fool because she didn't know my fiancé or the trust we share. So here's what happened. As soon as Luke received those photos, he came straight to me, not because he believed them, obviously, but because we both saw how pathetic it all was and how petty she was being. And we laughed. Why, you ask? Well, because, you see, the night in question, the night I was supposedly cheating on my beloved fiancé, I was at home with him the entire night. I didn't even leave the house for a minute. Luke and I were having a movie marathon, so we both knew this was all lies and a desperate attempt to sabotage our relationship. So we did the only reasonable thing we could. We laughed. We laughed so much, because it was clear Giannis was trying to drag me down with her. But here's where things get interesting. While we laughed at the whole thing, I couldn't help but feel a burning rage inside me. Absolutely, this woman was trying to destroy the one good thing I had in my life, and I had to put her in her place because she couldn't keep messing with me. I wanted to teach her one final lesson, once and for all. Don't get me wrong, I didn't initially plan to do this, but Giannis left me with absolutely no other choice. Here's the thing. During the wedding preparations, I saw something I kept to myself until now. Well, I saw Giannis kissing another man. Yes, she was kissing someone who wasn't her husband. I even took pictures, not because I wanted to ruin her wedding or her future marriage, but because I had a gut feeling something was off at the time. I didn't say anything to anyone, thinking it wasn't my place to get involved. But now that Giannis tried to ruin my relationship, why should I care about her marriage, right? So, I sent the photos to her husband Peter, and told him everything. The man didn't waste a second before taking action. By the end of the day, Giannis was kicked out of the house, and Peter filed for either divorce or annulment, I'm not sure, but at least I know they won't be together anymore. Look, it's not something I'm particularly proud of, but as I said, Giannis left me with absolutely no choice. She started this, and I simply put an end to this whole circus. And now, Giannis is pretty much ruined. She tried going back to my parents, but even they didn't want her, because they know they'd be stuck with her mountain of debt, and since she doesn't work they'd be the ones paying it off. They don't want anything to do with her mess anymore. So, where's Giannis now? I have no idea. She's either out on the streets or living with some poor soul who doesn't know what they're getting into. But, honestly, I couldn't care less. She wanted to play with fire, and I brought her a napalm shower to bring her the heat she was asking for. Update 4. The first thing I wanted to say is that while my sister Giannis has learned a valuable lesson about not messing with me, that doesn't mean she's learned to behave decently with the rest of the world. It seems her ability to get into trouble is inexhaustible, and now she's decided to target our parents, not me. After her husband filed for divorce, Giannis realized she was in a far more complicated situation than she had imagined. Not only does she have the immense wedding debt, but she also urgently needs to find a job to pay off that debt and just stay afloat. For years, she lived comfortably without having to worry about things like working or managing money, as she always had my parents or her husband covering for her. But now that she's lost the support of both, she's facing a reality she never thought she'd have to deal with. Here's where things get even more ridiculous. Instead of taking responsibility for her life, Giannis has decided to sue my parents. Yes, you read that right. She's suing them. And the reason is so absurd that I promise you'll either laugh or get angry, depending on how you look at it. According to her, my parents should have paid for the entire wedding because, as her biological daughter, it was their obligation. Giannis's logic is that since my parents decided to have her after years of infertility, everything related to her happiness, in this case, her wedding, is their responsibility. Yes, I know it sounds completely out of line, but in her mind, this must be a genius plan. She's convinced that my parents forced her to take out money for the wedding, and that's why she's now in debt. So basically, she's suing my parents to get back the money she had to borrow, as if they were responsible for her mess. I can imagine the judge's reaction when they read the lawsuit. I'd love to be there just to see the expression on their face when they have to deal with this tale of family madness. I can't imagine any outcome other than stifled laughter at how absurd the situation is. Giannis was the one getting married, not my parents. She was the one who, if she wanted an extravagant wedding, should have paid for it, or at least made smarter decisions. And let's not even mention the fact that if she hadn't cheated on her husband, she probably wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. But of course, in Giannis's head, we're all responsible for her poor decisions. Except her. The irony is that, of course, Giannis isn't just asking for her wedding debt to be paid. She's also hinted that she wants my parents to cut me out of their will. Something that, at this point, I couldn't care less about. Honestly, I don't care about whatever is left of them when the time comes, because I don't want anything from this family. I've worked hard to have my own life, and I'm happy with what I have, far from this chaos. So here I am, watching my sister continue to spiral deeper and deeper, dragging everyone around her into her vortex of problems. And the only thing I can think is, thank God I'm not part of this circus. It's like watching from the outside as the monkeys run wild, causing chaos everywhere. Edit. I don't think it warrants a full update, but regarding the lawsuit, Giannis hasn't gotten anywhere. Some people asked me, and the outcome was more than obvious.